Welcome to Tardisian Files, a show dedicated to reviewing and discussing aspects of one of the most loved and longest-running British sci-fi shows. This podcast is a non-profit, fan-led series where we pull together sources from all across Doctor Who's extended media, including the show itself, comics, audio stories, and novels. In this episode we'll be discussing the March of the Adipose. The biology of the adipose. Adipose are creatures composed of fat cells. The young adipose are the size of a fist, whilst the adults can grow to 6 feet tall. They have a round globular appearance, almost like marshmallows, with short legs and arms and one fang in their mouths. Being creatures of fat, according to A History of the Universe in 100 Objects, the adipose reproduced asexually, parthenogenically. This means that the adipose were often born to one biological parent either without the genetic input of a second parent, but depending on the exact type of parthenogenesis, they may not have been exact clones of their parents. Adipose bred by seeding lower life forms with adipose pods, which collected the excess fat in the host body and converted them into new adipose children. Given that various hosts will have had different DNA to the adipose, it was likely that the pods contained some adiposine reproductive cells, which physically digested the fat cells to release the fat molecules stored in them, and then assimilated them to allow the adiposine cells to divide and form the new alien body. To avoid immune rejection, these pods would have either had to suppress the host's immune system, or also use the host cell's membranes to trick the body into thinking that the growing adipose was still part of the host body. Once fully grown, the adipose would be painlessly ejected from the host body, though in times of crisis, most likely when there are few hosts to go around, the pods would assimilate all host tissues, including hair, bones, and internal organs, a process which was said to melt the host from the inside out. This intriguing breeding process would often occur on the adipose breeding planet, Adipose 3, and though the adipose is cited from this planet by TARDIS Wiki, it seems more likely that this world was a neighbouring planet in their local star system, though this was never confirmed in the show as the planet was only referred to as a breeding world. The background of the March. After the Daleks stole Adipose 3, at an unspecified point in Adiposian history, the Adiposian first family resolved to breeding on other worlds. To achieve this, they hired matrons from the 5 straight-end Clasablandi nursing fleet to essentially seed other worlds. Matron Cophelia was one of these agents, who travelled to Earth for her mission. She took the name Miss Foster, a reference to her status as the custodian of the adipose children that she would artificially birth, and set up a company called Adipose Industries in London. The company sold diet pills, which were in reality artificial adipose seeds. The pills worked by attracting the excess fat cells, galvanising them, and producing an adipose infant body, which, when fully gestated, would be ejected from the host body in their sleep without them ever knowing. The pills were also regulated by an adipose complementary pendant, which acted like a sonogram, monitoring the progress of the adiposian births and, in times of crisis, acted as damage control for Miss Foster. If any of the patients noticed the adipose, the capsule pendant would alert Miss Foster, who would use her own pendant to induce a full birth. This would cause the ingested pills to convert hair, bones, and internal organs, dissolving the people into fat and producing new adipose. Miss Foster had also built a parthenogenesis machine into the foundations of the Adipose Industries Tower, which, when the company was ready to roll the pills out globally, she would use to produce at least 1 million new adipose children. However, her plans were thwarted by the Doctor and Donna Noble, who had infiltrated Adipose Industries and discovered the existence of the extraterrestrial nature of the pills by chance encounters with adipose, produced from Stacey Campbell, a customer who was killed by Miss Foster after witnessing an adipose being produced when Donna had accidentally fiddled with an uncalibrated adipose pendant she had acquired earlier that day. Escalating her plans, Miss Foster attempted to convert 1 million customers into adipose babies in the United Kingdom. The Doctor, however, was able to completely shut down the parthenogenesis machine before full birth was achieved, saving thousands if not millions of people's lives. 10,000 adipose were still produced, however, during this birth process. These adipose babies then marched across London to Adipose Industries, and this was witnessed by the citizens of London. An Adiposian nursery ship was then dispatched to Earth by the Adiposian first family, who used tractor beams to collect the adipose and take them from Earth, supposedly to their new families on the Adiposian homeworld. Miss Foster also tried to hitch a ride on this ship, but the pilots had orders from the adipose first family to dispose of her, as they knew that breeding on Earth was a crime under the laws of the Shadow Proclamation. She was dropped from the tractor beam in mid-air and killed from the fall. The aftermath of the march. Secondary sources, such as the Doctor Who alien files, claimed that, despite their efforts to cover up their crimes, the Adiposian first family was still caught and arrested, and the children taken into custody by the Shadow Proclamation. Additionally, when the Doctor returned to the stolen planets from the Daleks' new empire in the Medusa Cascade, Adipose 3 was returned to its rightful place. Speculation. Given the fact that the central government of the Adipose were in custody, it is likely that depending on their political system, the Adipose would have appointed a new first family, or changed their political system to allow for a new leader to take power. There is, however, some debate over whether the Adipose will have returned to their breeding grounds on Adipose 3. This is because, to allow for the timeline to remain intact, the Doctor will have returned Adipose 3 to its original orbit in space, but in the present day rather than the time period it was originally taken from. We can assume this because in the classic episode Hand of Fear, the Doctor also refused to take the Castrian Eldrad back to his home planet in the past because it would have disrupted the timeline. So would the Adipose have even realised their breeding world was back? After all, Donna Noble had speculated that Adipose 3 disappeared a long time ago. So would they have even still been searching for it, considering that they had already given up and decided to breed on new worlds? Possibly. Given the fact that the planet was called Adipose 3, this implies that the breeding world was in the same star system as the Adiposian homeworld, which theoretically could be called Adipose 1. So if the planet was returned, the astronomers on Adipose 1 would have detected its return, likely because they would have been viewing the star system from their observatories. On the other hand, if they hadn't, they would have likely continued to breed on other worlds, taking care to avoid breeding on level 5 planets, having learned from their predecessors that this was a mistake. Continuity. When watching the episode, it's easy to assume that the episode was set when it was filmed, that is, in 2008. Indeed, Donna Noble states in the following episode that the March of the Adipose occurred in 2008. The podcast series Doctor Who Redacted, which case studies many of the New Who alien incursions, cites that the event also occurred in 2008. However, Doctor Who has always been set a year ahead of the year it was being filmed since 2005. So canonically, if this trend was followed, the March of the Adipose would have actually occurred in 2009, as Series 4 was filmed in 2008. Indeed, the book The History of the Universe in 100 Objects cites the event to have occurred in 2009. The fact that the Daleks' planetary heist occurred in the same season, and this was also set in 2009, this does indicate that the March of the Adipose occurred in 2009, especially since it was never mentioned when Donna returned home that she had missed Christmas while she'd been travelling with the Doctor. So given the evidence, it seems likely that the March of the Adipose did indeed occur in 2009, in the Doctor Who timeline, and any indications that it occurred in 2008 were likely continuity errors due to the show being written a year behind when it was set. And that is the full history of the Adipose as we've seen in the series so far. They have not yet returned in any new episodes of Doctor Who, and the only time we have seen them since Partners in Crime in 2008 was when the 10th Doctor was visiting all of his previous companions and went to see Captain Jack Harkness in a bar. A small adipose could be seen on the countertop and fell off after accidentally stepping on a spoon. Suffice to say, the interaction was only included for comedic purposes, but it was still nice to see that one of the more iconic creatures of the show was still involved somewhat. Adult adipose, which were envisioned to be about 6 feet tall by Russell T Davies, were expected to make an appearance in Stolen Earth during the visit to the Shadow Proclamation. However, for unspecified reasons, only the Jadoon were brought back, leaving us to wonder what the adult adipose would look like, and have any of them joined the Shadow Proclamation since the March of the Adipose, or would this be part of a community service deal that they broke to ensure that the children were given back to them, or do the adipose children still remain in custody of the Shadow Proclamation? If this is so, this means that the adipose would have actually missed out on their breeding cycle for 2009. And this could have had serious impacts for the population back on Adipose 1. This could have caused genetic bottlenecks, population decline, and it could have even meant that some of the adipose that used to engage in breeding had already reached past their reproductive prime point, and therefore less reproducing adipose would still be present on the planet. Suffice to say that if this happened, this would have been fairly devastating for the population of the adipose, so we can only hope that those cute marshmallowy little fat blobs somehow managed to weather through and reproduce and continue existing. Although this could also explain why they have sadly not reappeared in the show. Have they gone extinct, or have they just been forgotten as a bygone in Doctor Who's history? One can only hope, with RTD returning as the showrunner for Doctor Who, that maybe we might get to see some of his more classic but perhaps underrated monsters, such as the adipose. This podcast would like to think that the adipose are cute and fluffy, and despite their unthreatening nature, their threatening reproductive cycle actually provides quite a formidable enemy to go against. And we can only hope that the Doctor, whether David Tennant's returning Doctor or the new Doctor, Ncuti Gatwa, might encounter these cute blobby little aliens, and hopefully we'll find out if they made it through okay. That's it for today's podcast. If you liked it, please share and leave a review, and join us next week for another episode of Tardisian Files. Bye all!